All right, everyone, we got to talk about Trump and the national monuments thing that right now is on everyone's minds. You see some native tribes, environmentalists, and, basically all the never-Trumpers are all really upset. Now, the latter group doesn't really care. They don't even understand the issue, but, Trump did something, therefore it's got to be bad. So they're going to side. They would support, like, World War III if Trump said, hey, I think we should not nuke our enemies right now. We should wait, and see what happens. During some major crisis, they would be like, no, 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 Trump is a traitor. He's not pressing the red button. See, we told you he was controlled by Russia. He refuses to cause World War III and nuclear Armageddon and in order to kill 99% of their civilian population. But he's planning to shrink some national monuments, including, this is the main point of the article, the Bears Ears Monument within Utah. And some groups are like, well, it's not environmentally friendly because this land should just be set aside, not used. And it's like, yeah, it's mostly just rocky and scrubby, so it's not really biodiverse or anything. But it's pretty, so leave it alone. And then some native tribes are like, well, they're up in arms. Because what happened is Obama created this national monument because of lobbying. In the last few days he was the president, he created this massive area of land that could no longer be developed for any purpose. Now, based on lobbying by Native American groups. See, it's just a wedge issue. It's sort of a bribe. Hey, keep voting for the Democrats. I'm giving you some land that you can count on. No, none of those evil capitalists will develop it. You can use it because you're Native American and, from the region, whatever. Nobody else can use it. It's sort of like creating a little bit of a sub-monopoly. On that token, I can agree with Trump. Lobbying groups shouldn't be able to coerce presidents into abusing the Antiquities Act. It's just a chunk of scrubby land with some fucking little trees and canyons and stuff on it. We got plenty of that in the Southwest. It's just like, that would be like me, imagine I become president of the United States. I'm like, okay, I'm going to take this chunk of woods that used to be behind my house, turn it into a national monument. You can't do anything with it. Well, it's like, is it so unique? Is there something specifically unique about it to the point where it should be totally off limits? Or should the legislature do something to prevent the abuse simply of that land? Because, there might be some nice stuff there, so you want to limit development. See, that's what like we do on the state level. You go into the state forest, there are trails. There are a few camps, there are a few roads that traverse through the general area. And on the margins of it, there is some development and there is some logging also allowed because, old growth becomes fire prone. But for the most part, it's off limits. But it's a little bit less off limits than this sort of thing, which is basically, no, you can't do bullshit with it. And the government abuses this tendency all the time. Now, Trump is saying that this is for energy development, it'll be a windfall for the economy, he's saying. On that token, I have a misgiving. I'm not so sure that the handful of monuments he's addressing here, he's either going to rescind them altogether or shrink them. I'm not sure that relative to the continental United States actual land area, it's a tiny, tiny, tiny proportion of land. With a tiny proportion of the overall resources, I'm not sure that it's actually going to create a significant windfall for the U.S. economy. It's one of those situations where the government gloats because it increased growth by like 1/10%. Okay, it's better than the alternative, which is you fucked things up and lowered it slightly. But it's a drop in the bucket. It's not going to create... It'll be like Obama's shovel-ready jobs. That is, that a very, very small proportion of the promised windfall is actually delivered. Again, in the right direction, but overall, it's not a big deal. So that's my first misgiving. The second is there should be land that's not developed in this world. The idea that every square inch of the world can or should be exploited, I think, is totally wrong. Other than like desert areas that nobody would possibly want to develop for any purpose, that nobody ever bothers to try to build infrastructure. And out in the middle of the Sahara Desert, there's not a lot going on per se that involves human activity. Are we going to blanket every potentially arable, usable, developable piece of land in the whole fucking world until it's nothing but a Project Eden-style dystopia of one non-stop city with the crops growing on top of non-stop tenements? I wouldn't want to live in that kind of world. I think it would be better to try to figure out a humane way to limit the world population so that in some measurable way, so that there can be fallow land, there can be nature. It's like the Amazon's been shrunk enough. Not a square inch more of it should be developed. Not a square inch more of it should be in use. They've already ripped up half of it for farmland anyway. In the North Woods. People don't even realize, though, the Western world large, when environmentalists rant about these things, you got to realize the real problem environmentally in this world, or even as far as climate change, which deals with overpopulation because of beef consumption, cow farts literally causing more climate change because the greenhouse gas than human vehicles ever do. If you're worried about that, fundamentally, most of the problem is China and heavy industry, India's rising heavy industry, the slash and burn practices of Central Africa, the Amazon, Borneo. Borneo's been totally laid waste to. Orangutans will eventually go extinct because of human activity there. It's sickening. Chemicals being pumped into everything, sprayed everywhere. Monsanto's a problem. Monoculture, the lack of companion planting, the lack of innovation. It's like a few days ago when I pointed out, hey, you wouldn't need so much fucking pesticide, you wouldn't need so many chemicals with better farming practices. One of that is simply companion planting. And somebody said, well, a harvester can't do that. Build a harvester that can. I'm sure that you could probably figure out a way to have different components on a harvester so that each different row can be treated differently. I'm pretty sure it's mechanically possible to do such a thing so you can companion plant, not fuck your soil over and have to pump it full of chemicals every year. Yes, it's possible to do that, but apparently there's no depth of innovation within some people's minds. Yes, it's physically possible. As far as nature goes, we have slashed and burned so much of the world's surface that it's not surprising that we have issues. So I think any little bit we can save is a good thing generally, but again, the tiny proportion he's talking about, not necessarily a huge positive, but also not major in environmental impact. And if you're talking about something in Utah, you're not talking about an area that fundamentally is draining pollution from the air, making, respirating and breathing in carbon dioxide and breathing out oxygen and little frogs hopping around stuff. Now, you're talking about a dry, rocky, scrubby land that has relatively little of that activity going on. It's not like a rainforest. There are some habitats in this world. I know you don't want to neglect any of them because you don't want, more extinction. We've got problems with that too. There are some that are more important for human health, certainly, than others. Some nice green, lush, wet areas certainly solving much more of a problem with the human activity around it than something that's basically desert. Like a chunk of Sahara Desert isn't exactly adding much oxygen to the atmosphere. So we got to keep that in mind too. But I mean, technically speaking, under the Antiquities Act, a president can just unilaterally declare anything a national monument. Now, it can be unilaterally reversed by the next president, or by that president themselves. They could sign something, they could say, well, Lake Champlain today is a national monument, so everyone off the fucking lake because I'm going for a swim. But don't worry, tomorrow I'll sign the order, taking it off of the list. Now, president could do that. Yeah. I think that is slightly abusive, though. The number of monuments that exist and their size is what's in question here, not the fact that there are national monuments. But you know that Trump's opponents, what they'll say is, oh, Trump hates nature, Trump hates the environment, Trump, he's sucking oil cock, something along those lines. Yeah, maybe he is a little bit, but you've got to understand, the asides by the corporatists, even the corporatists themselves when they say this, are technically true. If those businesses grow and compete more ably, it does help to lift people up out of poverty. It's not like the much trickle-down stuff of, oh, well, I'll give a tax break to the rich. No, it's allowing businesses to develop further. You also want more competition, by the way. Until you address that problem, the economy will continue to have problems, no matter how much consumer confidence, by the way, Trump garners. I think that reforming the business tax rate is at least a first large step towards doing that. So that part, you're about to see a boom in the economy, probably. My general prediction is, at least for the next few years, we're going to be booming. Relative to what we certainly have been since, what now, 10 years ago? 10 years we've spent languishing with low growth and barely keeping up with the rise in populations. We added 100,000 jobs. Okay, but 150,000 people were born. So it's not going to help you. So, and then they're all low-wage jobs, you know, for the most part. Oh yeah, we created 150 new positions. 153,000 new positions for fry cooks. Yeah, that's going to add a lot to our overall economy. No, it's not. No, those people will continue to be impoverished. They'll be in poverty the rest of their lives. Their only way out is if they win the lottery. That's or their rich relative dies. Somebody who made their fortune back when we had more capitalism in the country and more competition going on. Back when the government, wasn't so anti-business as it has been since roughly the Clinton era, honestly. Certainly the Bush and Obama era. They've been screwing everything up with their stupidity. So I would generally support Trump on this. However, the list of monuments to be shrunk should be gone over. And pick and choose. You don't necessarily need to go for them all. And trying to justify it by saying this would be good for the economy, yeah, maybe so. But again, drop in a bucket sort of situation where the benefit to the economy is probably going to be relatively limited. But then again, keep in mind, like with the Bundy Ranch stuff, the government will go in and say, you can't use this land for any private purpose, even an informal purpose like grazing cattle. But we can go in and give that same land to China to develop into a solar project. We're empowered to do that, even if we're preventing you from using it because it's critical, and it's environmentalism. It's a critical habitat for the three-legged tree toad or something. There's a ground tortoise here that's endangered. I think that ground tortoise was literally the reason at the Bundy Ranch with the standoff there that they said they couldn't graze that tract of land. Then they turn around and develop it. Oh yeah, we're giving it to a Chinese subcontractor. And they build solar panels. It'll be great. It'll be environmentally friendly. Fuck the tortoise, basically. That's what the government will do. So the less land, hopefully, that's being managed by like BLM and groups like that, I guess that would be one significant benefit. That's about all. Peace out.